Now, we had the VIX down by 14.3%. Again, another 14% drop. We had a 14% drop the day before on Thursday. And you know what that means. If you don't, I'm going to tell you. The VIX, based on historical data, is predicting that in the next two trading sessions from Thursday that we will have a down day on the S&P 500 to start a pullback or to start a reversal. That's what it's predicting. 85% chance it's going to be right. 15% chance it's going to be wrong. Nothing is certain. It's like any other indicator, but historical data, 85% of the time it's played out. 15% of the time it doesn't. Start going parabolic, well, that's oftentimes when it doesn't play out. Starts predicting big moves up, which are going to predict upward moves on the S&P 500. When this starts happening, when you start going parabolic, usually you throw it out the window because it doesn't work at that. It's usually the failure rate is when that happens, when you get like a Lehman moment or a pandemic sell-off or something like that. Or right here, actually the signals have made some pretty really good calls. Most of them have been correct, these predictions. But anyways, we got another one here. So Thursday, the VIX is predicting that we're going to have a down day on the S&P on Monday. It didn't happen on Friday. The S&P was up on Friday, so it's predicting it's Monday. 85% chance it will happen, 15% chance it doesn't. Not perfect. No indicator is perfect. Got today on Friday, we were down another 14%. So again, predicting that the S&P is going to have a down day Monday or Tuesday in the next two trading sessions. Again, 85% chance. So you got back-to-back signals warning that, hey, you might get a down day on Monday. Maybe we get rejection at the 10-period moving average, rally further and start a reversal. It may be wrong. 15% chance it will be. 85% chance it will be right. If we start to turn back down, again, you're either getting a pullback or you can start a reversal. That's what it's predicting. It's just based on historical data, based on the closes, and based on the percentage moves up and down. Now, we've had this rally back up. We're rallying back up into the moving averages, back up towards the gaps. I told you to watch these gaps. We're likely coming down to that 200-period moving average. But wanted to touch on the VIX. Eventually, again, the S&P 500 is probably going to move to a new low. And let me just tell you something. It doesn't always play out this way, but often it does. Oftentimes the VIX will bottom or top before the S&P bottoms. Not every time, but a good majority of the time, that's the way it plays out, that the VIX will top, then the S&P will bottom after that. So if we see volatility, say we higher in the S&P to the 20-period moving average and then try to off, or the VIX's signal here is correct for the Thursday session, and even if it fails, you still have this signal saying, hey, Monday or Tuesday you're going to get a sell-off. So say we don't rally to the 20-period, but we get rejection immediately off the 10-period. If the VIX starts turning back up, I would expect to see a lower high. I think this is a peak on the VIX. So again, I'm going to be looking for another dump on the S&P, but then I think it's going to bottom, and I think the S&P in all likelihood will rally to a new high and go back. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like my charts, you like my indicators, please consider helping out, partnering with me by supporting the channel today. I need to hear from you in order to make it work. I just put it all out there for free. But I ask that you partner with me and support the channel. Made on YouTube through sponsors. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make merchandise of you. I don't want to sell you stuff you don't need. I want to send you to websites where they want to overcharge you for things, sell you gold, getting triple commissions and this kind of nonsense. I mean, it's just a lot of scams out there, man. Just ask that you support the channel. You could take a moment to do that. I would really appreciate it. Just do whatever you can. Follow the link below. It'll take you to a secured site. You can donate any amount you want. You can make it a recurring donation where it comes out every month. If you do that, I thank you. You could take a moment. That I would really appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration for that. Sunday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time, I will be posting another video. I've got to cover daily charts in this video, the 60-minute charts, a little bit of the weekly charts, but I'm going to be talking about other indicators on Sunday that I'm not talking about in this video, like this chart right here that is still bearish. Gee, it nailed the top. A reversal of conditions. Things are still bearish. We're rallying up into a declining 10-period moving average. Maybe you get above it and go to the 20, but I'll be talking about this. I think you're coming down here to the 200. And we got this green bar. I'll be talking about that. What does that mean? Make sure you check back on Sunday, and I'll be posting that Sunday, 7 a.m. Eastern Time. Some of my other indicators, amazing stuff. The indicators that call this top, that are going to call the bottom, and they're warning that the bottom's not in yet. Let you examine the indicators and see what you think. This chart here, this is the S&P and get the NASDAQ. I think a bottom's here, but we're going to get a dramatic drop down here, and then I think it's going to be over. Powerful rally back up. One of the problems is if it's over, why are my signals still bearish? You see what I'm saying? Are we still in a risk-off environment if it's over? You see, the people that are declaring it's over right now are the people that never saw it coming. I told you up here was the top. I believe down here is the bottom. We'll see what happens. Live it, love it, learn it. Back in early July, on July 10th, NASDAQ peaked. Ahead of that, I was telling you it was going up into these trend lines. With the peak on July 10th, I told you to watch the CPI data the next day because we are above the upper Bollinger Band. I told you if we sell off the CPI data, then again, you can get your reversal off of these trend lines. I talked about that in great length of detail, and I told you if that happens, you got a good shot that the top is in for NASDAQ. Exactly what happened. We dropped 500 points with CPI. Then I told you we were going to rally back up and get a lower high. Got that topping tail that week, closing on the 12th. I told you the next week we get an evening star reversal, and we get a big reversal, a big wide range bar down. That happened. We're getting these record days of down and then record days of up. What happens when you're in a topping process? But again, the people that told us, the experts and all the people over social media, oh, no way that's going to happen. Shut up and buy the dip. Well, we're blindsided. Now, they're proclaiming now the bottom is in. The people that never saw this coming are now telling us the bottom is in. I'm telling you it's not in. Most people, and people on social media and the experts, most people call moves after they've already been made. Like right now, we had this drop, rally back up. They're now telling us, oh, the bottom's in, the Fed's going to do an emergency cut maybe and stabilized in with the Japanese markets. The bottom's in. And NASDAQ recovered. We actually closed positive. We had a drop, We actually back tested the broken trend line. So it's over. People that never saw it coming are now proclaiming it's over. Told us it wasn't going to happen. I'm telling you it's not over. I'll tell you why. You can draw your own conclusions. But I again, believe we're going down to see the NASDAQ close below the 200. Then I think it's over. I think you get a bottom. And I think that's going to be in this area right in here, in this high 16,000, low 17,000 area. I think we'll take out that low. I think you'll get a dramatic drop. You'll get back all the gains that you had. I think you're going to see that happen here probably next week. You'll see the start of it, maybe all of it. Maybe you'll just get a big drop all one shot and scare the pants off of everybody. But I'm telling you, the bottom's not in yet. And I'm telling you, this is a target level where we're going. Again, from the 16,700 area, this is the 2021 peak. That's horizontal support, to this rising October 2022 trend line. This is the high 16,000, low 17,000 area. This is where we're going. We could bust the trend line, get a bottoming tail, and then rebound back up. Could be we test the trend line and bounce. Could be we hit support. But that's the window, 16,700 to 17,300 or so. This is where I think we're going to bottom. I don't believe this is it. Just like told now this is the bottom, we were told over here that this wasn't going to happen. Again, the people, when we started to move in free fall, then the people started saying, oh, we're all going to crash. All the crash videos came out. Oh, we're all going to crash. We're all going to die. People that told us it wasn't going to happen. We get this rebound, and now they say, oh, it's over. You see, most people, they're very emotional. I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think. And again, I'm just looking at support and resistance, and I'm telling you, we're likely coming down into this area. We're going to turn off of this area. I was correct. Yes, I think a bottom is coming. Do I think it's here already with this move? No, I think this is the fake out rally. This is the fake Fed is going to do an emergency cut rally. this is. Whatever the catalyst that gives us another sell-off, is it tensions in the Middle East? Is it more concerns about recession? Inflation data next week and it spikes up or something? We topped. Sorry about that. I had to take a phone call. Hey, we topped with this confluence of resistance. We'll probably bottom with this confluence of support. I told you as NASDAQ began to sell off, following the top, I told you the Russell was in a topping process a couple of weeks ago. And again, that was at the time when we had the rally. That was at the time in late July. Experts are now telling us, oh, the Russell, it's going to go up 40% from here. 40% from here. And what happened? The Russell collapsed. And I told you it was in a topping process, and it's going to collapse more. Look at the divergence. Look at what happened over here in 2021. The Russell is diverging from the S&P 500. It will likely form a divergence here, probably sell off more. The S&P will eventually bottom. Russell will rise back up and end up getting a lower high. S&P will probably move to a higher high, and you'll see what happened. The same thing will happen as happened over here, where the S&P peaked right here. Russell had already peaked, and they diverged. Russell got a major divergence when it topped. That's what's happening right now. But again, the experts, everybody all over social media, oh, the Russell, this hoax about, oh, it's rotation, moving out of time, it's rotation. Yeah, it can get a topping process too, not go up 40% from here, okay? The stock market, all these people, and I was telling you about this trend line right here, and a couple weeks ago, I told you we were going to rally into that trend line. We did, and then I told you again it formed the divergence in the daily time frame. Don't have time to show you all that, but I talked about this rising wedge in the weekly, talked about the trend line on the NASDAQ, and when I told you we were going to turn off of these trend lines, and we did, gee, that was correct. People that never saw it coming are now telling us the bottom is in, and we're back testing the trend line right here, by the way, on the Russell. We're back testing the trend line on NASDAQ 100. And again, we're likely going to resume the decline. You might go up and try to fill the gaps a little bit higher, daily charts, but again, you're likely going to resume the decline. Then I think you'll bottom on the NASDAQ. You know, the so-called experts telling us we're about to have this 40% increase. Well, peek a stinking boo. Don't show them this chart. You've got diversions here, which again I've been warning was setting up before it did, and warned that we would again likely push up into this level, just as we saw the divergence over here. And again, let me just say this: back over here, the same people told us this wasn't going to happen over here when we saw the Russell and the NASDAQ collapse. NASDAQ collapsed 37%, and I warned you about all these things back up here. Same people telling us. Difference is over here it was a major correction. This time it's going to be a bear market. It's going to be much worse than what we saw over here. And again, we're in a topping process. I think a bottom is coming, but I'm just warning you, the same people that never saw the sell-off coming are now proclaiming it is over, and I'm telling you it is not over. I think it will be over, but I think the NASDAQ will close below the 200 and hit 17,000. Maybe high 16,000, and then it'll be over, and then you get your big rally back up to 20,400. Very few people have the guts to tell you exactly what they think. The stock market is following Bitcoin. Now, they had a short period of decoupling. When Bitcoin, I proclaimed a bottom here, on July 5th, I told you that NASDAQ was peaking. NASDAQ peaked July 10th. Bitcoin was going to rally to 70,000, hit it right on the nose up to this trend line, right on the nose. And I told you the stock market was going to start selling off. NASDAQ is likely going to do what Bitcoin did and come down here below the 200 period moving average and then rally back up. Okay? And then 50 is going to start dropping and moving towards the 200, sideways consolidation, and you're going to see what happened. Bitcoin happened with the NASDAQ, and that's come right up here and then collapse. It dropped 29% in 8 days. It's rebounded back up, but we're getting the death cross. And that's what's going to happen with NASDAQ. NASDAQ's going to rebound and bottom out at the levels I'm telling you, the high 16,000 to low 17,000 area. It's going to rally up hard to 20,400, likely overthrow that, go test the high, likely get a lower high, and then it's going to collapse and eventually get the death cross and usher in the bear market. I believe NASDAQ has already peaked. I believe Bitcoin has already peaked. Bitcoin is probably going to get rejection at this death cross. It's now happening. It's rallying into the death cross as I predicted it would. I predicted we'd bottom right here at the 50-week moving average and rally up or pull back and rally up, one or the other. I talked about the possibility of rallying up into the 50 period or even overthrowing it, the 50 and the 200, as they get a death cross. And again, absolutely amazing calls, amazing signals. If you haven't watched one of my Bitcoin videos, those indicators are so stinking accurate. It's amazing. But just know this. This is what I think is going to happen with NASDAQ. You're going to drop below the 200. Everybody right here, oh, it's over, it's over, it's over. We got rejection at the 20. Again, NASDAQ will likely get rejection at the 10 or 20. Right now it's testing the 10. If it gets above the 10, then the 20, and then you get your dump, one or the other. We'll see what happens. It happens with the CPI or the inflation data, the PPI. It happens with tensions in the Middle East. Maybe it happens with earnings. Maybe it happens with recession fears. I have no idea, but I'm just telling you it's not over. Once we get a dramatic drop, it will be, in all likelihood, and you're going to get a powerful rally back up on NASDAQ. You're likely going to see a divergence form like this on the RSI on NASDAQ. I'll tell you why I don't think it's over. My blueprint. This is my cheat sheet. And look what happened. Bitcoin dropped to a new low after this rally that I predicted happened. And I predicted the top. And then right here, I told you, hey, we got a top. Signals warned the very next day. And we got the topping tail. We hit my target level, 70,000. Pretty amazing stuff. NASDAQ's following the blueprint of Bitcoin. And check this out. And I warned you of this before the sell-off happened. And look at the NASDAQ weekly chart. We're back testing the trend line right here. Broke the trend line from 2023, the 2023 low, the higher low that's set up, and we broke it and we're back testing it. Okay? Warned you before the sell-off ever happened. As we were going into the rally, we were advancing on declining volume, and I warned you, I saw signs of distribution. The week of the top, I warned you there was distribution, and the week after, when I predicted we get a red bar for an evening star, I warned you there was distribution. What happened? Exactly what I said was going to happen. It went down. Okay? Now, signals tell me when there's accumulation and distribution taking place. Right now there's bound, but we're still in a downtrend, and signals are still bearish at this point. So I think there's still risk of going lower. Signals showing accumulation and distribution, absolutely amazing. I think we're in back test mode here, and I think we're still going to go lower. But I do think a bottom is coming, so I hope you hear what I'm saying. Okay, I'm not saying we're going to collapse and never have another rally, and we're gonna just fall into a NASDAQ 5,000. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're in a topping process that will eventually usher in a bear market, where I think NASDAQ will drop 60 to 85%. Yes. In the topping process, do I believe NASDAQ's peaked? Yes, I believe NASDAQ has peaked. I believe the bear market's already started for NASDAQ? Yeah. We're in a topping process still because, again, S&P, I don't think it's finished yet. I don't think it has topped yet. That pivot will complete the topping process for us. Look at my risk model. Again, I showed this to you when we first started getting the sell-off. Again, moved into a risk-off environment. We're still in it, okay? We've had a rebound back up to fill a gap. We've recovered. We opened lower and we recovered the week's losses. But again, it's likely that we're going to get another leg down before the bottom is in. I think you got a shot at it at the 17,000, 16,000 area there, high 16,000 on NASDAQ. Again, if those levels break, forget it. Then that level would be taken out. My guess is you're going to bottom there, but I don't think the bottom is in. Here on the S&P 500, we're still in a risk-off environment, and the S&P trend is still bearish. Risk line is still bearish. The risk model is still bearish. Warned you about divergences that were forming on the NASDAQ as it was topping, and here on the S&P 500. Risk off at that time was forming positive momentum, I should say negative momentum, that would eventually take us into getting a risk off negative environment level here, which is exactly what has happened. So I don't think it's done. We're still in a risk-off environment. Risk on is exposure to stocks. Risk-off is no exposure to stocks. Short positions. This is long positions. This is short positions. Without exposure. Still in a risk-off negative environment at this point. The S&P 500 was up just under 0.5%, up just under 25 points on Friday. We're rallying right into the 10-period moving average, right into the momentum cloud, filling the gap at 53.45 there on Friday and hitting our 10-period moving average. I've been talking about this. Hollow red candlestick down here. I told you we can get a rally, but it's likely a counter trend. I told you I've been watching these levels, and here we started to turn trying to fill it just on an intraday basis. I told you maybe that's all she wrote. We got a higher low. We turned back up. Wasn't all she wrote. I told you, again, there still may be attempt to fill these gaps and test our moving averages. Look where the 20 period is. Look at this gap fill up here at 54.47. That 20 period and 50 period is right at that gap right there. Maybe we make it that high, maybe we don't. You're going to turn off the 10 here, or overthrow it a little bit and turn off of it, or you're going to turn off, rally up to the 20 and turn off of it. And maybe you don't fill the gap up here. Maybe you just come up, you're at gap resistance right here if you go a little higher, and then you have the intraday lows that were made here for that gap down in here. So again, you could still rally up but not fill this gap. But I do think you're going to turn off either the 10 here or the 20 and or these gaps of the gap fill areas or gap resistance. I think you got a good shot at turning here off of the 10. I think you got a really good shot at turning here off the 10. You're hitting the momentum cloud. You're filling the gap. And again, this is where I think we're going. Currently, the 200 is at 5,032. And that's where I think we're headed. We could go as low as 49.53, which is the low over here. If I zoom out a little bit more, you can see that's horizontal support. Possible head and shoulders. My guess is that you're going to end up forming a double top on S&P before all is said and done, and go back and fill this gap up here and eventually move to a new high. That's what I think is likely going to happen, but I think you're going to get another dump down here to the 200 period. I think you got a good shot at that low 5,000 area. If we go just tag the 200 and bottom out, and then rebound or dropping below it. I think NASDAQ will drop below it. I don't know if S&P does, but this is the area I'm looking at, this mid 4,900 area to the low 5,000 area, and I think we'll bottom. Now, the people who told us this was never going to happen, they're telling us, oh, the bottom's here. Earlier in the week, they were telling us, oh, we're all going to die and we're going to crash. These people are very fickle. They're very emotional. And again, extreme courage to tell you, make predictions before they happen. Most people, most of the people on social media, after the fact, after a move's happened or after a move's rebounds, oh, it's the bottom's in. Oh yeah, we're crashing down over here as we're crashing after the move's already been made. I told you up here what was going on, and it was diverging with NASDAQ. NASDAQ made a lower high, and I told you NASDAQ had already peaked, and I told you S&P peaked right here, and then I told you the day after that was validated because my momentum signals turned bearish. But right now, I have the guts to tell you, yeah, I told you we were going to rebound back up and get a rally. To be watching these gaps, told you to be watching the moving averages, but I also have the guts to tell you that I don't think we bottomed. My signals are still bearish. Rally back up, this dramatic drop and rebound back up, it's done nothing to change my signals. Now you're getting a bearish alignment of the moving averages. The 10's already dropped below the 50, the 50's flattened out, and now the 20's dropping below the 50. That's a bearish realignment of the moving average trio. I don't think we bottomed yet. I think you're coming down here, and I think you bottom at the 200 or just under the 200 period moving average. I think S&P will form a divergence. Now maybe S&P goes up here a little higher, and that gets us to gap resistance, or maybe to this low over here, or maybe you get all the way up to 54.47. But I think you're going to get rejection at either these gap resistance levels and gap fill areas, or the 10 and 20 period. These are the levels where I think you're going to turn. And I know that you make it all the way up here. Okay, I think you could turn here, or maybe a little bit higher if we try to rally a little bit more, and then you turn. But I think you're going to get something like that. And then I think you're going to bottom. We could rally on hopes, oh, the Fed's going to cut, the Fed's going to cut. And it could be that we rally into September 18th if we bottom out here in August around the 200 period moving average. And again, there's going to be a lot of institution interest around the 200 period moving average. The people telling us that we're not going, that the sell-off's now over, people that told us it was never going to happen. Okay, I'm telling you, look, a bottom's going to happen, but it's going to happen down here. Then you're going to get a massive rally, and I believe S&P is going to go to a new high. Okay, so again, I think they're going to be caught off guard, just like they were caught off guard with this stuff. But I think this is a counter trend, just like you had a counter trend here, just like you had a counter trend here, and I think that you're still going lower. Good news. I think you'll form a divergence, and I think you'll bottom, and I think, again, NASDAQ will follow that Bitcoin model. I don't know if S&P takes out the 200. It very well could, but it could just tag it. MACD is still bearish. I think MACD histogram will end up ticking back down and form a bullish divergence down here. You'll get this big dramatic drop that everybody's telling us is not going to happen, just like they told us this wasn't going to happen. And then I think you're going to bottom out in this neighborhood. MACD will turn back to bullish, and I think you will eventually get your rebound back up to a new all-time high. That's what I think is going to happen. I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think. Just looking at support and resistance. I'm not some wannabe Nostradamus. Okay, I'm just looking at support and resistance levels and mathematically based indicators. Here's if we zoom out, here's the trend lines. Again, you got the October 2022 trend line right here. You got the October 2023 that was broken. So again, now we need to be watching horizontal support and the 200. My guess is you're going to bounce there and bottom, go back up and make a new high. I think you'll form a divergence here, just as you had the bearish divergence up here. And I think you will bottom out. If you don't, then the risk is you go to this trend line. It's all about support and resistance, and again, guesses we're going down to this level. It'll still remain bearish. So again, this is, in my opinion, a back test for the NASDAQ and the Russell trend lines, and bound to fill the gaps in a counter trend rally. I told you on the 60-minute chart, that we had gaps over here. I told you we ended up forming a bear flag with that pullback right there. Higher, we didn't quite fill the gap, and then we broke down, and again we broke that little bear flag. The MACD didn't roll over, and I talked about this at the time. We got an inverted hammer here. Just had a gap and trap and a straight 5.5 hours of selling. I told you we could get it if we roll over immediately, but it may turn back up. Still may try to fill this gap. That ended up happening. So now we have filled the gap today. Okay, on Friday we filled the gap at 53.45. So now what happens? Do we go up? You got gap resistance straight ahead, directly above. You've got this gap on, again, intraday low. Also be resistance, and then you have the gap fill up here at 54.47. So again, these are the levels I'm watching. Right here, we're at the 10 period in the daily. I told you we'd be rallying into the declining 50 period. What happened? We rallied into the declining 50 period. That may be it, because we're forming a little rising wedge now. But again, going to be looking for the MACD to eventually roll over and form a bullish divergence. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that's going to happen next week. Maybe we get another dramatic drop. Maybe tensions in the Middle East do this, or maybe recession fears, or whatever. Or the rate hike with Japan and recession concerns. Maybe we get something like that, and we get another dramatic gap. We'll see what happens. Maybe it happens, starts selling and selling and selling. We'll see what happens with the inflation data. But this is what I think is going to happen. Then I think you're going to hit that 200. Then I think you're going to bottom out. 200 in the daily. Go higher, you've got a shot at a bear flag. If we continue to go higher towards this area here, or towards of this gap resistance area here, you've got a shot at a bear flag forming. Regardless, I expect rejection here, and I expect another push down. And again, this does look like a 3-leg push higher. And maybe it's done, maybe it's not, but I think you're going to get a sell-off. Get an ugly gap down, recession fears or tensions in the Middle East over the weekend, top early on next week, and try to sell off with the inflation data. It could play out a number of different ways, or a combination of things. And I'm telling you, I'm looking for another leg down. I think we'll bottom out and get a massive rally and make this look like nothing. Here's the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ's rallying up into the 10 period. NASDAQ filled the gap at 18,441. Above it, you got gap resistance directly overhead. Okay, you got your 100 period moving average. Again, the low over here from the gap fill area, that intraday low right there. We may around 18,700 and some change. The gap fill up here, 18,890. I don't know if it'll be the 10 or the 20 period, but I'm telling you again that I'm I'm looking for rejection. You very well could get rejection around the 10 period moving average here. Know that we make it up to the 20 period moving average. We could try forming possible bear flags also if you continue to try to rally higher. The 15-minute charts with NASDAQ and S&P 500. Get rejection here at the 10. Again, I think we're going to just move into a free fall here. I think that you got a pretty good shot filling these gaps that you're going to turn down or go a little bit higher and turn down. But I think you got a good shot. You may try to make it to this next gap in the 20 period, but again, I think you got a good shot of it right here and now. Again, if we do try to go higher, maybe the RSI goes up towards 50. If we can try to go to gap resistance, or if we try to make an attempt to fill this gap or fall short of it, hitting the 100 period and hitting the low of that gap fill area on an intraday basis. But I think you're going to set up this RSI, bullish diversions right here. That's what I think is going to happen. And again, you're going to drop below the lower Bollinger Band and hit this low 17,000 area, high 16,000 area, and then I think you're going to get a rally back up to fill this gap up here at 20,400 right there, and I think you're going to test this and do exactly what Bitcoin did. You know what the NASDAQ's going to do? Just look at Bitcoin, and the NASDAQ's behind Bitcoin. Bitcoin's leading the charge. It's a couple steps ahead of the NASDAQ, S&P 500. Close below the 200, NASDAQ's likely going to close. Here we got a hollow red candlestick at it, bounced off of an intraday low below it, but not a close. I think you're going to get a close. So again, I'm looking for rejection right in this area around the 100, the 100, the 10 here, and the pink lines of 100, these gaps. And again, if you can manage to go higher, CPI data, then maybe you hit the 20 and then you get the dump. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to be looking for a dump around the 10 or 20 period moving average around these gaps that I've been talking about. I think you go back and fill these other gaps way up here after you get one more push down. And again, MACD is still bearish, still in negative territory. I think histogram will eventually turn back down and you'll see that diversions form. And I think that will mark a bottom down here under the 200 period moving average. MACD will get a bullish cross. NASDAQ is either forming a rising wedge, looks like a rising wedge is developing with today's high. If we stall in this area at the gap resistance and having filled our gap, just overthrowing our 50 period, you're overthrowing a declining 50 period. You overthrew a declining 50 period here and this happened. You were rallying into a declining 50 period here and this happened, okay? And bounced off the 50 period, tried to get above it here and drop below it, and this happened. So again, you're rallying into a declining 50 period moving average. You're rallying into a declining 10 period moving average in the daily time frame. You got a possible rising wedge here now on NASDAQ if we turn immediately, or again, it could evolve into a bear flag as I talked about on S&P if we try to go up here towards this trend line, towards this gap fill area here. If we try to get some big rally and then drop back down, then you got a shot at a bear flag pattern. But I think one of those two patterns plays out. I think one of these gaps produces a reversal that takes us back below this low, and rejection at either the 10 period or above it at the 20 period moving average, which would take us to this next gap right here. So I think that this is the area where we're going to get the rejection at, and then I think we're going to move lower. I think we're going to bottom, and then I think we're going to get a massive rally back up to 20,400 right here to fill